Hello everybody, today I'll be diving into this little thing here, the TourboxNEO, and see if it's worth adding to your toolkit. This video is intended mainly for creative use, but I hope it's helpful for other use cases as well. The TourboxNEO is a software controller that is designed to be an efficient alternative for performing certain tasks quicker than with a keyboard by offering customizable buttons and dials in a compact design to streamline repetitive tasks. I'm always looking to improve my own workflow, so I've had my eye on this gadget for a while and finally decided to give it a try. Just a heads up, this video is not sponsored. I purchased it for my own personal use, so everything I have to say about it is purely my own opinion. So let's get into it. The TourboxNEO comes as a fairly compact square-shaped build. This makes it easier to place around the desk. The body is made of plastic, but the finish on it actually gives quite a nice soft feel, which I find helps to anchor my hand better on the device. The connecting cable is a USB 3 cable that is braided, which will help with avoiding tangles. I have had no problems with it sliding around on the desk. It stays very much firmly in its place. There are 11 buttons and 3 dials. All 3 also press in, which to me makes it basically 14 buttons. And they feel pretty good to press. They are tactile and the rotation on the dials have enough resistance to avoid any unintentional sliding. The vertical dial has clicks on it while the other 2 don't. So it allows for different use cases, which I will get into detail later on when I go over how I use this device. Once you've downloaded the Tour console app, you'll be presented with the setup console, which in my opinion is quite well designed and easy to use. You get a preset list on the left with options to import pre-made ones or export the ones you've got active. You can also assign a particular software to the delegated preset, which will activate as soon as you open the software. Below the presets, you'll get an annotated image of each button on the device as a reference. These graphics highlight as you press the button to help set up the functions. And on the right side is the function assignment section, which lists every button and its function. On the Tourbox website, you can download a number of user-made presets for different software. There are a few missing that I noticed, so keep that in mind. And also for English users, be aware that not every preset is in English. Regardless, I do find them handy to try out as a starting point and then change them based on my needs. To assign a shortcut or function, you will click into the respective field on the button function list, which brings you to a pop-up menu that gives you a few different ways to set it up. One is by emulating a keyboard shortcut like a key press or a combination using Control, Shift, Alt, etc. On the right is a helper menu that will let you target software specific functions or operating system level shortcuts like volume. You can also record a macro which will emulate a sequence of events. The coolest part though is that you can also do combinations, for example pressing the tall thumb button and the dials together. They allow you to do a few different combinations. For those who want extra helpers, you can also enable the HUD displays for the buttons and the D-pad. So how do I actually use this thing and how has it improved my workflow? Well, I'll go over a few different software that I use. With editing applications, I have set up the TourboxNEO to be as close as possible with each other for consistency so that I can swap between them without too many differences. And this is how I've configured them. The main knob dial serves as a frame-by-frame timeline scroller, which is mainly for pinpointing sections of the shot in the timeline that I want to work in. Pressing on the knob will activate a cut at the cursor. This combo has helped speed up my cutting workflow, so it works a treat for that scenario. The flat dial does the same thing. This is to traverse quickly over large areas of the timeline. And I have the press set to bring the cursor to the start of the edit. The vertical dial will zoom in and out of the timeline or viewer. The press is set to zoom to fit, which is useful if I am zoomed right in and need to reset my view back to normal. The small button next to the main knob is set to delete, and the small circle buttons are undo and redo, which is quite handy. The short thumb button is my play and pause, and the tall thumb button next to it is set to enable and disable clip. I use the long horizontal button at the top for saving the project, and the side button is my select tool shortcut. And this is largely the same in Premiere Pro. I find this setup actually does help speed up my editing workflow over just using a keyboard. The dials are nice to have when scrubbing, and once I got the hang of it, that's where I saw a difference in speed. And I also have a separate preset set for just the color page of Resolve. This is due to the complexity of the color page and workflows. I just want to say that it absolutely does not replace a true color grading control surface, but it's still an improvement over just a keyboard. With After Effects, I borrow a lot of the editing shortcuts. The main differences being how I use my D-pad, which is set as shortcuts for the toolbar tools like selection, shape, pen, etc. Other than that, I make large uses of the combination features for things like quickly adding solids, adjustment layers. Occasionally I'll use the on release feature as well for assigning different functions to the same button. With Lightroom, I keep things simple and mainly use the default preset to change a lot of the common settings in the editing section. I've found that these work just fine for me. So there isn't much to say here apart from that it's more of the same process of button setup if you require more control. I will say that the dials are very handy for Lightroom because a lot of the UI is slider based, which is a perfect use case for dials. And I just want to touch on 3D software. Unfortunately, with 3D modeling, I have not used the TourboxNEO as much as I wanted to. I find that there are just too many different shortcuts and combination of functionalities that are just way better suited for a keyboard. And another thing that I want to mention is that I also happen to have a display pen tablet, which I use for a lot of precision work like sketching and sculpting. And this is where I think the TourboxNEO actually comes into its own. The reason for that is the keyboard becomes a bit difficult to use efficiently, at least for me, and gets in the way as I need to be very close to the screen, which makes it awkward to position my arm and body in a comfortable way. The form factor of the TourboxNEO comes in clutch here as I can place it just at the right position. So with that said, I would recommend this mostly to people who don't need a large amount of different shortcuts and most importantly don't need to change context where these shortcuts are being changed on the fly. I think a keyboard for that scenario is probably more versatile. I do think that video and photo editing does get a nice little benefit from this device. I would also absolutely recommend this device to people with a pen display tablet like the Wacom Cintiq or Huion devices. However, I must stress that it took some time to actually learn to set this up in a way that it worked for me. And on top of that, getting used to the learning curve does take some patience. You will have to build up the muscle memory, including with multiple application setups. Because of that, you'll undoubtedly go through a period where you're not as fast with the Tourbox as you may be with a keyboard. So thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you found it useful. If you are already subscribed, thank you so much for your support. And if you're not and have found this video helpful, please do consider subscribing. Take care and see you in the next one.